Hello, welcome back to Blender Sushi Live Noding. In this episode, I'm gonna take another quick detour and we're gonna revisit this how to generate a mesh using grease pencil. We've done this in the past using Sverchok, and we're gonna do the same thing but slightly more different. And this is kind of like just still like work in progress by Sverchok developer, but basically they're kind of tidying things up in Sverchok, especially in terms of object ID. So object ID is kind of like if normally if you look at all the nodes here, they're either like generating data or they're manipulating data and performing like a certain functions. But with the object ID, it's kind of connecting the mesh data or the component level data into the more to the object level. So with the object ID, for example, with the object ID selector, in here you actually can access any of these object level modes. Like in this case, we want to check grease pencil, and recently the update is that we can now like easily access the grease pencil, for example, grease pencil data just by doing this and selecting which grease pencil layer you want to work on, and then pick a frame and etc. So this is still work in progress. Maybe it's still beta, but I don't know. But just keep looking for um, this kind of thing. Maybe one day we can kind of work on armature or bones even easier. Um, yeah. So anyway, yes, that's the my main points. Let's start from scratch again. So in order to do the grease pencil now, you just make like a quick doodle with grease pencil. I'm holding D, and then go to compositing, and inside compositing you can use the object ID selector and just select the grease pencil and grease pencil like that, and then select the GP layer, because by default grease pencil should actually make like a grease pencil layer. And once you've done that, if you look at the nodes, what's the output of this is, let's look at it from using stethoscope. And this is actually vertex data when this pass point is on. Otherwise, this is like the actual data block. So now that we have these points, I believe we can just connect it into something like viewer draw to view the result. And it apparently does. And you can see here there's a tree. That means we have three strokes, three streams of data. We can join it, but if we actually just bake it now, the result should be three objects with bunch of points of it on it. So if you want to turn it into edges, of course you can use the UV connections, but I think it needs to be edges, and then slices on, doesn't matter. You bake it, this guy is becoming an edge, and that's a normal polygon mesh edge. You can do anything with it, like if you perform like a skin modifier, for example, you turn it into a mesh. Very cool. In fact, you can do that the same thing in Sverchok, of course. We have, of course, the skinner nodes. You just plug in the, I think, oh, actually you need the UV connection here. Vertices to edges, and make it live, and you get the same result. This is using the skinner mesh. But as you already know, Sverchok already also have this polyline viewer will actually generate a curve. Sometimes I like to use this guy. Currently, seems like doesn't it looks like it doesn't work, but actually curve generating it is so small that it's being covered by the grease pencil. So if we look at in the outliner, we have 3 curve, and of course they are all being controlled by a single radius. You can do twisting and all the funky stuff. You can also turn it into B-spline. B-spline on grease pencil is actually really nice. Sometimes it smooths the grease pencil, although as we know, grease pencil actually generates a lot of points and they're all kind of scattered. What would be nice is to be able to resample it on the fly. So vector interpolation is usually my way to do it. I'll show you real quick. Delete this guy. So that's what vector interpolation is doing. But if we plug in the range float in here between 0 and 1, and what you will see is we get these dots. This is the resampling points. And once we have this, using the vector interpolations, we can then use the polyline viewer to complete the process. Turn on this line and you get a really nice smooth resampling of the line, even though of course with B-spline sometimes it doesn't connect to near the end, so be careful with that. There's also one thing that I noticed with this object ID overhaul in Sverchok. So if you search object and then you look at it, okay, this guy already have a lot of object ID, and then object ID is very, very important because it makes the whole nodes in Sverchok kind of more fluent, talking to each other. So in the past, I was kind of always counting how many nodes I can kind of connect in Sverchok to make like a procedures, I end up like maybe around 20 nodes is like my maximum node so far. If we have if we reach like 100 nodes, probably we need to tidy things up to make it as simple as possible. But you do notice that we sometimes with the objects, with the nodes, we get this object output. Whenever we get object output, that means apart from this thing kind of outputting objects in the scene, we can actually bring it back while still this guy is being connected in Sverchok. What I mean is, if we now use the object, for example, object sort filter, object ID out. That's actually the one that's can connect, because you can of course bring in objects using objects in this guy, but this guy doesn't have objects in. And this guy actually can select groups and multiple objects. This guy only select a single object. Keep that in mind. And this guy can pass on the post modifier as well. So this is currently a curve. You can apply things like remesh. This guy become almost like a mesh, but this is still like a curve. And once this guy is like this, you can turn on post modifier and continue working inside Sverchok. So that's I think that's a really powerful workflow. Very, very powerful. In fact, this makes the whole node systems is very fluent, while you still have like a normal working environment in 3D here. You can do something in edit mode and etc. And you can go back to Sverchok at any time and then make changes as well. So yeah, so that's pretty much it for this live noding. I guess that should be enough tips on the grease pencil stuff. Okay, yeah, I almost forget we were talking about grease pencil. So back to this guy. Yeah, so with the grease pencil, if you actually want to add more or just make more grease pencil, this guy will update accordingly. So yeah, that's a very interesting. I think maybe the only limitation at the moment is when the grease pencil actually doesn't close. Keep that in mind. Grease pencil never actually close anything for you. So this will always like an open kind of curve. But yeah, this is really, really powerful if you're using grease pencil a lot and you want to do like a quick 3D design or whatever, and you want to animate it right away. You can use this method with Sverchok, and you can also animate it. Don't forget, you can always animate the curve like that. And there's a lot of other options. But yeah, I think this is enough. Give it a try. I think if you have any question, just let me know. This is actually very simple to create yourself, or you can also use the GIS that I will export. I will share with you this setup. I'll export as GIS. Okay, that's pretty much it for this live coding. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.